faster and more intense. That was his main direction. He just wanted us to speed through it.
George is notorious for saying, after a take, do it again, faster, more intensity. He certainly said to me, it was, terrific, Tony, can you do it again faster? But that's it, I didn't get more intensity. I didn't think 3PO with more intensity would be bearable, do you?
Hello everyone, and welcome to Faster and More Intense. I am your host, Shiloh Camrath, and joining me, as he always does, is my co-host, Mr. George Costel.
Oh, hello.
That actually wasn't bad. Who was that trying to be again?
Oh, just nobody in particular. It's good, yeah?
It is good. I feel like I should owe you money or something. You sound like a Ukrainian mobster or something.
No, don't worry. It's good.
That's actually pretty good.
Glad you feel that way, yes.
Yeah. Ukrainian mobster. I think you might have been, I don't know. Was that Italian? I don't know. Whatever.
I think it's a mix of a few things.
It's something. Well, anyways, we are not the Ukrainian mobster podcast. Instead, we are a Star Wars podcast, and we're going to be talking about the latest news for Star Wars this week, as well as the Darth Vader issue number 20. Excellent issue, and we will talk about that in a bit, but first, the news.
First things first, the StarWars.com launched a new little web series, The Star Wars Show, going to be about 7 to 8 minutes every Wednesday. Andy Gutierrez is one of the hosts. I have to admit, I actually haven't watched it yet. I'm embarrassed. I really think I should have.
I haven't seen it either, so...
But it's a thing that's happening. It's on StarWars.com. It's on YouTube. Please watch it. Be better than we are. I always enjoyed Rebels Recon, so I'm sure this is going to be just as excellent. So be better than us. Go watch it. Also announced via StarWars.com, Kathleen Kennedy and Gareth Edwards were announced to be attending Celebration Europe, and they'll be actually on... They'll be panelists, I should say, at the Rogue One panel on July 15th. So actually, from the date of recording, that is exactly 2 months out. And if I were a gambling man, I'd say that's when we get the next trailer.
Now let's see. Gareth Edwards is doing episode 7? Or is he the one doing Rogue One?
He's doing Rogue One.
Okay.
He's definitely not doing episode 7.
Who is doing episode 7?
J.J. Abrams.
Did I just really say that? Okay.
Yes, you did. Rian Johnson
thank you.
is doing episode 8.
Okay. It is late. Okay. It's 8:30. It's really late.
I mean, it's 11:30 where I am, but I still got that right.
Yeah, rub it in.
I intend to. Also announced this week, not in any huge, exciting, big announcement thing, but they confirmed, EA, I should say, confirmed that the sequel to Star Wars Battlefront is forthcoming, and it will be focusing on the new films, as opposed to the original trilogy. So that's kind of fun. Nice new era for, Battlefront to explore. I know a lot of people were hoping there'd be some Force Awakens content. My thought is, if you're going to do another Battlefront in the original trilogy, I can't imagine it being anything that couldn't be done as DLC for the current game.
Yeah.
I would have been happier, honestly, with like a prequel Battlefront, but, Lord knows we're trying to pretend those just don't exist at this point.
Yeah.
So I kind of see why they're going to the sequel trilogy. Resistance versus First Order, I think, can still be a lot of fun.
I think it can be a lot of fun.
So I'm still kind of excited.
But I just absolutely do not see the reason to make a new game. I mean, they've already proved with the Battlefront, with Battlefront now, if you want to add new maps and new characters and all this kind of stuff, just add a DLC. They've already proved they can do it. So unless you want to create...
Okay, but why wouldn't you sell for $60 what you could? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be, I'm sure, a bit of, I don't want to say huge, because I think most people didn't feel that Battlefront, the original game, was actually all that big. But it's going to be obviously a big update. Yeah, I'm sure all new maps, all new character models. So even if it could be done as DLC, I'm sure it'd be a much more limited scale. And so I understand why they're going for a new game.
I hope they kind of tweak the game engine too, to an extent. I would actually like it if they went back to the original Battlefront 1 style where, like vehicles were not pickups, and instead it was actual vehicles you could get in and get out of and land. Because, I mean, who doesn't like to land in a spot where the game doesn't want you to land and just, like, trying to screw with the physics engine? I mean, come on. That was the best part about Battlefront 1, was trying to take your AT-AT and climb it up the hill on the Renvar maps. I mean, yeah.
You and I had very different experiences with Battlefront 1.
Oh, yeah. You didn't like Battlefront 1?
No, I liked it. I just didn't think about the best part was trying to climb an AT-AT up the hill.
That may have been an exaggeration. I'm just trying to get a point across, But I really liked.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. There's a lot to be said for the old system that I don't. I mean, I'm not going to say I disliked it, but I definitely wasn't wowed by the new Battlefront.
Yeah, it feels like
I got it as a.
I was just going to say, it feels like you have a lot less control. I mean, it just feels like you're plopped in, and with the pickups and things like that, you just do what they tell you to do, which is fight, and done. I mean, everything is really highly organized as far as what you do. It's all set out in front of you. Whereas with Battlefront 1, when you don't exactly have more set goals, when you don't have set points, when vehicles aren't a pickup, you only get for a set amount of time, it just feels a little more free. And I don't know, I thought it was just a little more fun when you have that freedom.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say that I've played more Battlefront 2 than since the new console Battlefront came out than I have of the new console Battlefront.
Yeah.
I mean, I think. I mean, here's the thing. I just think Battlefront 2, those older games had more single player value.
Mm-hmm.
The new one's very multiplayer dependent, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But if you're not looking for that, it's going to be kind of boring, I think. Again, it's a lot. It looks great. It captures the feel of Star Wars very well. I just think it was missing some things, and hopefully in a new game they can listen to some of that feedback and add in what people thought the new game was missing.
Yeah.
So who knows?
But
we'll
it's
see.
EA. There's a reason why everyone hates EA. So don't get your hopes up.
That's true. That's very fair. Also, I don't want to say officially announced this week, but hitting all the different rumor mills is that Tom Hardy will be making a cameo appearance in Episode 8 as a stormtrooper, in a similar way to Daniel Craig's cameo in The Force Awakens. And I don't want to give away. If you look it up online, you can find a description of the scene. I thought it was a funny scene, but I don't want to spoil it for you in case you want to just see it.
I want to stay
kind of new in the movie.
Spoiler free. I've heard this guy's name before, but I'm actually Googling him right now to see a picture because let's see. Okay.
He's the new Mad Max. He was Bane in The Dark Knight Rises. He was in Inception. He was in The Revenant.
I see. Okay.
Tom Hardy's been all over the place.
Yeah.
I really like the guy. I think he's a very good actor. And so I really hopefully at some point I'd actually like to see him take on a larger role in the Star Wars universe. But if he's just starting off with a stormtrooper, I figure we can just go from there.
Yeah.
And then the last big piece of news actually kind of segues us into our comic discussion pretty well. But it was announced that Darth Vader, Marvel's series, will be ending at the end of the current arc at issue 25. And so if you actually go into IGN, the author of the series, Kieran Gillen, actually did a really nice interview with them about why it's ending. And it's essentially, just to sum it up, that when they started writing Vader, they had a deliberate story that they wanted to tell in mind, and once it was wrapped up, they didn't want to draw it out unnecessarily. They didn't want to, go beyond the scope. They thought 25 was a good place to end. They saw the story was winding down. And I kind of respect them. This is a huge selling series for Marvel.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, it's a huge selling series for Marvel, and I respect them for not milking it for all it's worth, and rather just kind of letting it come to a natural close.
Yeah, and I totally agree with their decision. I mean, especially after this issue, which we're going to talk about in a second. It's been an excellent run. I think overall we can say it's probably been the best Marvel series so far for Star Wars.
I'd say it's been the best ongoing series.
Yeah. I mean, you like to make the case for Lando, but
I think you can make the case for Lando. You might be able to make the case for Obi-Wan and Anakin.
But just say, like you were saying, Darth Vader has been an incredibly successful series for them. It's been an excellently well-written series. And I just think it's a good place to end. They've told their story. It's been a really fascinating story. It's told us a lot of new information. And you know what? It's just a good place to end. Every story's got to have an ending. And like you said, I'm really glad that they are ending it when they feel creatively they've gotten what they need to out of it, as opposed to just making another issue just to make another issue.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. Now, just to kind of go through some of the things going down with this story, it's actually going to be an oversized 40-page issue. And I'm actually seeing like 56 pages, I'm assuming with ads and whatnot. It's going to cost $5.99, $2 more than usual. And it's also going to have it's going to have a lot of variant covers. Not as much as, say, like Star Wars #1, but well more than your average issue. Adi Granov, who did most of the early run of Vader covers, is doing another variant. Joe Quesada is doing a variant. Salvador LaRocca, there's going to be an action figure variant. And then plenty more that I'm just not going to get into.
Yeah.
I really like the main cover for the issue, actually. But, we'll see. I'll probably wind up picking a couple up. Who knows?
Yeah. I probably won't pick any of them up, but hey, whatever. Maybe one of these days I might pick up the trade paperback down the road at some point. Just because, like I said, it was a really great series, and I'd kind of like to be able to read it all, like, completely through in one go.
Right, I feel you.
Because I feel like, it's it's a very complex storyline that they kind of developed.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like, you'd appreciate it more, or at least appreciate it in a different way if you were able to read it all at once.
Yeah, no, I understand. I know what I've actually decided I'm going to do with the Star Wars titles, is I'm just going to wait not for the trade paperbacks, but until they do oversized hardcover collections. I've decided this is the way I'm going to go, because they're doing, I think Vader 1 through 12 are getting a hardcover collection, so I'm assuming then they'll do one for probably Vader Down in the last few arcs, so I'll probably pick that up. I know they're doing one that's actually collecting all of Leia, all of Chewbacca, and all of Lando. So I'll grab that as opposed to grabbing the individual trades. Just because I don't feel like spending all my money again. I buy the issues as they come.
Yeah.
So why buy the trades and just upgrade slightly when I can get a really nice hardcover? And it's not like I'm missing out on the story since I already have the single issues. So that's right.
Yeah. Now, are the trade paperbacks, are they that hard / soft to where they're like that plasticky semi-hard but still covering, or is it just like plain? Is it like just the thickness of the pages, or is it thicker, the covers?
The covers are thicker than the pages.
Okay.
But I'll say that Marvel's trades I find to be much more malleable than Dark Horse's.
Okay.
It's still not, like comic book quality. It's better than that, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's not as, I'd say, drastic an upgrade, at least in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But what do I know? I don't actually have all that many of them, so I'm probably not the best person to judge.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
All
You
right.
want to just get into the discussion about Vader?
Yeah, I think it's a good time to segue. So this is the first issue, as we said, of the last arc, appropriately titled "End of Games." And as my buddy John actually noted, we think it's actually incorrectly called Part 5 of the Shutoran War on the interior cover, on like the little text crawl page. So I'm hoping that gets fixed eventually, because that definitely does not strike me as correct. Yeah. But that said, I thought otherwise this was a really strong issue, even though it essentially has like 2 scenes in the main issue, then like a little extra 000 and what is it, BT story. So it's essentially these 2 long scenes, one with Palpatine, one with Thanoth, and I thought they were both excellent.
They were both
but Shiloh, what do you think of the
beyond
issue?
Excellent. I mean, and I don't think it's necessarily just because of them themselves, but because of the last 19 issues leading up to this. Everything that has been built, up to this, I mean, it made kind of the reveal. It was very satisfying to get some of these issues wrapped up, to get some of these loose strings wrapped up. Along with that, I mean, there was just excellent writing as far as the way they revealed, the way they kind of wrapped up some of these loose ends and were, at the same time revealing lots of interesting little tidbits. And we'll talk about them, but it's just it was just an excellent issue. I mean, there's really nothing I could find that I actually disliked about it. I was talking to Matt, and he didn't like how quickly Thanoth went. He would have liked if he would have stayed around for a couple more issues. But I mean, Thanoth went, but Thanoth went in style. I mean, you can't have a classier ending than what happened to him.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about the death of the good inspector in a little bit. But just so I can get my feelings on the table a little more, I definitely agree with you these conversations that he has are fantastic. And I think especially with Palpatine, it's long-term payoff. Because I know none of us loved Shiloh.
Yeah, I hated him, but yeah.
Exactly. And I think that the way Palpatine describes Shiloh here definitely makes up for, I think, some of the earlier treatment of him in the book. The series, I should say. So I really liked that. But then, yeah, I'm with you. Great payoff, great conversations, excellent writing. Couldn't be happier. So I guess let's get in first to the little conversation between Vader and Palpatine on board Tag's soon-to-be flagship, the Executor. So that was a lot of fun. And essentially, this is less of a conversation, for the most part, than just Palpatine monologuing.
Yeah. And he's almost monologuing in an apologetic way, and it's really cool. Almost.
What I really liked is, this isn't like canonization of EU stuff, but Palpatine's description of his rise, saying that the Sith were many Sith rising up against the simpering light. They warred against the Jedi, they warred against their own kind, and then they became to one master, one apprentice. And so that is basically what happened in the EU. Darth Bane kind of made that happen. And obviously Bane is currently canon, thanks to the Clone Wars.
Yep. Mark Hamill, I believe, is his official voice, right?
He is, yeah. So that's another little notch in his belt. So, it's a very good... So that was a lot of fun to see him kind of confirm that. Yeah. And then Palpatine kind of saying, like, generations building to me. I planned this all out. I'm a genius. That's, like, very much... It felt to me like it was drawn heavily from James Luceno's novel Darth Plagueis. Plagueis? Whatever.
Yeah. And like I said, I was talking to Matt, and he was talking about how he was a little disappointed how Palpatine didn't mention the prophecy of the Sithari being fulfilled in him. But that was very much implied in a way.
Yeah, here's the thing: the Sithari. I mean, that's like a super EU thing, if you ask me. The idea of there being a it's essentially, for those of you who don't know, the Sithari is like the Sith chosen one.
Yeah, basically.
And it's like, I don't know, it's not something I'm missing in the new canon. And like, if Palpatine made explicit reference to it, I honestly would have been taken out of it. Especially because in the EU, I think it was said that Bane, not Palpatine, was the Sithari. So yeah, I'm A-okay with that not being mentioned.
Yeah.
So what I did like.
Do you have the?
Go on.
Just first, do you have the comic book in front of you?
Yes, I do.
Okay, cool. Because and there's so much in here, I don't have it in front of me, so I want to make sure that we don't miss any of the little talking points here.
Yeah, no, I'm being careful, because then Palpatine kind of rails against the Jedi for a little while, which is expected.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved his description. He says he's using people who are not Sith to achieve his aims, which I mean, obviously you see with him manipulating, the Senate, say Masameda. But then he talks about as an apprentice, saying, Darth Maul is a legitimate loss.
Yeah.
Which actually goes a little more against Plagueis, because their Maul was very much just like a tool.
And slightly against Clone Wars to an extent, because Palpatine did not really show a lot of remorse for Darth Maul getting knocked out of the game. When he went to take him down during the Mandalore arc and whatnot,
well,
he never.
I definitely don't. I don't think this conflicts really, because I mean, at that point, Maul was going against Palpatine's.
I don't think it conflicts.
So it's not
but it doesn't necessarily jive perfectly. I mean,
again, I don't agree, but I mean, go on. I didn't mean to sandbag you there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just saying it just doesn't seem because he never showed any. I mean, even something where Palpatine would have said in the Clone Wars, it's a shame that I had to lose Maul or something. He was never showed anything like that. He was just completely focused on getting Anakin at that point, and he really didn't, never talked once about how it was unfortunate that Maul had to go. So maybe it doesn't contradict, but it doesn't necessarily explicitly spell it out in the Clone Wars.
You're right. It's not spelled out in the Clone Wars, but I mean, who would he have said that to? Tyrannus? Man, you suck. I wish you were my last apprentice.
Well, good point there.
It's like. So I'm not too broken up, and by the time he's aware of Maul being back, Maul is working against Palpatine's goals. So I can see, but what I thought was much more interesting than him saying Maul was a loss, but his description of Tyrannus as a proton torpedo who served his purpose and was gone. That was fun. Palpatine has this wicked smile on his face as he said it, saying he had a superior candidate in mind, and I was just like, yes.
Oh yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I actually really like Dooku as a character. And I think that's almost more because of his potential than anything that's actually been done with him.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely liked that line.
Yeah.
Definitely felt very stinging in a way that I thought was quite reasonable.
Mm-hmm. And his description of Shiloh, like you said, it really was nice to hear Palpatine's description of Shiloh, because like I said, I had really not liked Shiloh. It didn't seem natural that Palpatine was using him. It didn't make sense that Palpatine had him or his test subjects. None of it jived well with me. So to hear Palpatine talk about how Shiloh had really integrated himself, so much into the Empire that it was difficult to get rid of him, that is really interesting for two things. One, Palpatine never really liked Shiloh, never fully was on board with what he was doing, but also that we sometimes think about how powerful the Emperor is and forget that while the Emperor may have had a large amount of control, one man is never enough to hold all the power. I mean, like Palpatine was saying, he had to use other people, and sometimes those people gained a lot of power. I mean, say with Tarkin, it probably wouldn't have been so easy for Palpatine to just, get Tarkin out of the picture. He would, because of the amount of people who really respected Tarkin and who liked the Tarkin doctrine. And, with Shiloh, he said if he would have just, executed Shiloh, that would have caused a great schism between the Empire's greatest minds. So that was really fascinating to hear. In this, Palpatine's kind of almost coming clean to Vader in a slight way. Like I was saying, it's slightly apologetic, and that could be a means to an end, which it probably is. But in a way, Palpatine is also kind of being frank and honest with Vader to an extent.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's worth noting that, while Palpatine notes that, before then, he's saying, you had to live after Mustafar. I couldn't, afford to find someone else. And so
I think he even said he
turned to the
tried to find somebody else, but he couldn't.
He's just like, I need an apprentice with might. I sought, of course. I found candidates, but none sufficient. So he's like, in order for the Empire to live, Darth Vader had to live. So he's giving Vader a lot of credit there, which I'm sure is nice for Vader.
Yeah.
Especially after Palpatine's been, get it together this whole series. And so he says, I turned to the scientists, the best, the boldest, one more like the Sith and their Jedi. Shiloh was one of them. And they used that to remake Vader. So he's saying, Shiloh had a role to play. And, Palpatine admits he was intrigued, about what they could achieve without, the morality of the Old Republic. And then, Palpatine says, for it is not my duty to chart the possibilities. So he's saying, I'm not sure he regrets what he did.
Yeah.
He thinks he made the right call, but he's admitted that Shiloh grew powerful. But I think if Palpatine is anything, he is a man who can play the long game.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's what he kind of recognized he had to do. He's like, Vader will, we knew you would, eventually beat these guys. Shiloh would overreach. And then my true apprentice would, reveal him as a traitor and purge him.
And then Vader has one of the greatest lines ever. And it's just like at this point, Vader is kind of just... I think he's learned a lot from this issue. From this series, Vader has learned a lot and become wiser in a lot of things because of these experiences. And he just utters like, you know what? If the other ones had won, you'd be giving this speech to them. I mean, Vader's just having no more of Palpatine's games. And he's just... At this point, I think he's just kind of tired of it.
Yeah, but at the same time, Vader says, I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Vader recognizes...
He
just says, the dark side is strength, I am that strength. And Palpatine says, you are. Shiloh's run, find him, he must be destroyed. So Vader knows his place, and he's able to see through Palpatine's, facade, if you want to call it that. But at the same time, he's... like we said, accepting of it. And so he'll just take it on.
Yeah. With possible ulterior motives after this, which we'll talk about in a little bit when we get towards the later end of the issue.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Which I think we're going to move to now. It's essentially the end
I feel
of
like
that
we're
first
missing
scene.
one of the something else in there. I remember.
Well,
so he talks about how he searched for candidates, right? After his failure at Mustafar, he searched for candidates, couldn't find any, so he decided to bring Vader back. Does that mean that there was a period of time between Anakin getting chopped up and him getting reconstructed where Palpatine was trying to find candidates and Vader just kind of laid there in a bacta tank?
I don't think so. I definitely agree with you. It's a weird turn of phrase.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's been said before. Like the events of Revenge of the Sith happened like over a week.
And that's what I'm thinking.
And if Anakin would have been healed in a bacta tank, like if Anakin was in a bacta tank, like if it didn't heal and maybe kept him alive, I don't know. I honestly think like when Palpatine says that, it could have been that once Vader was in the suit, Palpatine was still looking.
That's probably
it could have been that
means,
Palpatine did like a very cursory look and just realized there was no one else. It's not like, because I mean, say like the Grand Inquisitor probably turned around this time, right? He was a temple guard. He could have been, turned pretty quickly. And so Palpatine just takes a quick look, thinks about it, just like, nah, you don't have the ambition I need here.
Yeah.
So I see where you're coming from. It's definitely weird, but I don't think it could have been any significant length of time. But I definitely agree with you in that it would nice to be, able to explore that a little more and see just to what extent, Palpatine actually did look for replacements.
Yeah.
And now with that out of the way, we can move on to Vader's conversation with our favorite monocled Imperial, Inspector Thanoth.
Yes, yes. Wow. I just gotta say, I have so much newfound respect for Thanoth after this.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, the classy way to go. I mean, one of the classiest deaths in the new canon, I gotta say.
So, I mean, for those of you who don't remember, Thanoth was Vader's attaché for a little while, when they were actually tracking down Aphra, of all people, because she had stolen Imperial funds.
Yep.
And so Thanoth always, seemed like a very smart, intuitive guy. And Vader, throughout that whole run, was just kind of getting by like the seat of his pants.
Yeah.
He had some very, very near misses in that arc.
And we now find out now that Vader wasn't getting by. Thanoth was playing Sherlock Holmes here, and Thanoth knew. Vader was just thinking he was getting by, which, yeah.
I mean, in the short term, Vader definitely was.
Yeah, but it was just saying, he wasn't. To us, it seemed like he was just getting by, but in reality, Thanoth had figured it out, which.
Yeah. And so, I mean, Thanoth essentially, Vader wants to just get the information and kill him. And Thanoth's just like, I'm not, you can't kill me till I tell you. Let me say what I want, then, I'll tell you. And so what he says is, the girls escaped nagged. Too many loose ends, too many coincidences. Something grander was afoot. She was being protected, and then he's like, it was kind of obvious who was doing that, Lord Vader. And so then, he goes back and he talks about, looking at her trips to Tatooine, to Naboo, to Rogus Voss, all leading to Luke. And then he's like, Skywalker, there's a name with history, eh? And so, I mean, he's hinting that he knows, and then eventually he just flat out confirms it at the end. And what's absolutely, I mean, gotta be some of my favorite closing lines in the new canon, right? Ever?
It's
been a pleasure working with you, Anakin.
This was fantastically done. I mean,
yeah.
This scene was a little fan servicey, but I mean, it was awesome. I mean, this kind of thing. It was amazing. I mean, it's the kind of stuff you want to see, and and it really also revealed, because before Thanoth does that, or during before he says, "Been a pleasure working with you, Anakin," he talks about how he even guessed Darth Vader's motive, or possibly not even Darth Vader's motive yet. I mean, maybe it's not even his motive yet. Maybe it's just starting to ferment. But Thanoth is like, you want to find your son so you guys can get together and overthrow the Emperor.
Well, he doesn't say that. He says you want to find the boy.
Yeah, exactly.
He doesn't reveal that he knows for sure until the very end, which makes it all the more satisfying.
Yeah. And so he says you want to find him and overthrow the Emperor. I totally agree with you. And then Thanoth goes off about how he believes in the Empire, but he believes the Emperor has become too weak, and that Darth Vader is the one that can bring the Empire back. And then Thanoth takes off his cap and basically says, I'm willing to sacrifice my life for the good of the Empire, for you to go on, complete your mission, kill the Emperor, and all that. And that's just, I mean, you cannot help respect the guy after a dedication like that. I mean, it was just great. And it also really shows how even though the Empire is basically the brainchild of the Emperor, and it's easy to see the Empire as the Emperor, there's people who have really taken the idea of the Emperor, of the Empire, past who the Emperor is, and really see the Empire as a set of ideals that's not tied to the Emperor. And which makes it all the more strange, I must say, how quickly the Empire collapses after Endor. When you have these people who see the Empire as more of a set of ideals and less the Emperor.
Right, and I mean, we don't know the extent of, who feels what way, who feels the other. And then, who knows? I mean, it could have just been that the defeat at Endor really seriously did throw everything into disarray. It wasn't even infighting, it was just, they couldn't, there was a power vacuum that no one was able to fill. But I find it interesting because we just talked about how Palpatine was, such a master at playing the long game, and that's one of his strengths. And Thanos just like, his plan stretching across decades to build an unparalleled weapon and a handful of fighters bring it crashing down. And he's like, yeah, Palpatine's long game isn't perfect, and he believes in the Eternal Empire, and he thinks Palpatine is fallible, which is fascinating.
It is.
And then, like I said, I love, because obviously, we say that he's willing to sacrifice his life to preserve the ideals of the Empire. But I love just how willingly he's willing to do it.
Yeah.
And like how fervently he buys in. Because he says, he could have told Vader anonymously where Aphra was. And then maybe he wouldn't have to kill Thanos. But he's like, but you're not a fool. You're tenacious and unstoppable. Look at all the bodies you threw my path, try to put me off the scent. You would have to know the source. Eventually you'd find a clue. Then you would not rest until you saw me dead by your own two hands. So I could send an anonymous message, running my whole life, when you should be, focusing on saving the Empire and not finding me. Or we could save everyone a whole lot of time. And he just accepts it.
Yeah.
And, like, he knew what was going to happen going in. He expected it, and he wanted it. That's just...
Yeah.
Man, what a guy.
I know, that's awesome. And so, okay, did you see Sherlock Holmes in the Game of Shadows?
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember the very end scene where... Well, not the very end, but... where Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty basically play out the entire fight in their head.
Right.
And Sherlock Holmes already figures out he's going to lose. And so he sacrifices himself by killing him and Moriarty. That is what this scene reminds me of. Thanos has already thought out everything. He's like, you know what, I can send this anonymously, but in the end, it's just going to work against what I really want. So let's just get this over with and do it this way. I mean, there's just... Again, you can't help not admire someone, even if their devotion to ideals are something you don't even agree with their ideals. That devotion and willing to sacrifice yourself for something is a really admirable trait.
Definitely. And I mean, I think Sherlock Holmes is a very fair comparison to draw to Thanos.
Yeah, he was definitely modeled after that.
So I like, I think that's a very good connection you made. I don't know if it was something they were explicitly going for. But yeah, it's definitely a lot of fun. Then, I guess the issue about wraps up there. Vader sends BT and 000 after Aphra. Looks like some battle droids and Black Chrysanthemum will be helping them out.
Yeah. What do you think?
That should be exciting. Yeah. I love the cover to the next issue. Just delightfully preposterous.
It is. It very much is. What do you think about Aphra? I was talking to Matt, and he said he hopes Aphra doesn't die. I actually hope she does die, and I hope she does die by the lightsaber to the back of the neck, like Vader promised her. I think...
Like she asked for.
Yeah, she asked for. I think that'd be a fitting end. But what do you think? Do you want her to survive? Do you want her to get the lightsaber to the back of the neck?
Honestly, I'm not sure I have too much of a preference. I mean, she's a great... I guess it depends on either way how they do it. I do think she's a lot of fun, and I think that her little run in Rebel Jail has proven she can work in other series. But at the same time, I definitely think her end here would be fitting. So we'll see. I will say, if they don't kill her off, if she does survive, I would want to see her continue in the main Star Wars title.
Yeah, I feel like they've built her to the extent where if she doesn't get killed off, she's gonna have a serious, or at least a role that is ongoing. I don't think she can be a Trios where they don't kill her off and she just doesn't show up again, which I think, Trios can probably pull off. I don't think we talked about this. She doesn't have to show up. It'd be kind of fun to see her little cameo. Yeah. But, she's not someone that has to show up. But Aphra, she's been now integrated with the other characters, to the extent where I think she kind of needs to show up again if she does. I personally would like her to die, not only because it'd be kind of cool to see that come full circle, lightsaber to the back of the neck, and that, she knows a lot about Vader, but also, I just think it helped the series for closure. I mean, I agree. This series, after this issue, I didn't know that the series was going to end at 25 when I read this. But after I read this issue, I was like, okay, I really think they're going to be ending this series now. And then you told me that they were ending it at 25. I'm like, oh, okay. Because this definitely felt like the beginning of the end. Like they were really winding everything down. And I think just adding more like Aphrodite and winding this series down, tying up all the loose ends, would just make it, I think, even better than it already is. Just making it a really nice self-contained story. That, was excellent.
Definitely. I think that's about all I have to say for the main comic, but luckily we get a little BT and 000 story afterwards, which I thought was a lot of fun. It has the two of them after the events of Vader Down. 000 has 3PO's arms, and is in desire of an upgrade. So it's them going to this old associate of Aphra's who kind of figures out who they are. Because I had forgotten that Aphra activated 000 at the start of the series. And I actually reread that issue, and I realized that one of the reasons he was shut down was because he had, it was along the lines of unique ideas about droid self-improvement. Which, in retrospect, we now know obviously what they are, thanks to the Shutoran War.
Yeah.
And so I can kind of see why the Old Republic officials would be like, yeah, let's shut him down.
Yeah.
But anyway, they go to this new droid designer, old friend of Aphra. And so they just have fun. They wind up killing him, or they get him killed by disabling the locks on his droids. There's a fun little bit of cat and mouse between them, but it's a pretty slight story. I didn't know how you felt about it.
I didn't read it, so I didn't know it was there, and yeah. So
good job.
Yeah.
Well, you have something to look forward to. I mean, it's fun. Here's what I'll say. This is now the second droid-centric little mini-story in a month or two, thanks to the BB-8 story at the end of Poe Dameron 1.
The BB-8 was just awesome. I mean, it
was cute. It was adorable.
Yeah.
Here's what I'll say. If you like 000 and BT, you'll like this story. And then, beyond that, this story actually, I don't want to say furthers the plot, but it is, a nice scene that actually does, not advance the plot, explain a little background. It's definitely not as slight as the BB-8 story, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So for that, I think it deserves some props. So hey.
Speaking of which, what do you think is going to happen to BT and 000? You think they'll survive the series and move on, or?
I think they can. I mean, so long as they survive their encounter with Aphra, I think they'll probably wind up helping out Vader, doing his dirty work as necessary. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see that being a thing.
Yeah. Maybe get their memory banks wiped. I don't know. Yeah. Although we know that it didn't really work on 3PO.
Yeah, I was going to say, have some 3PO-esque ruminations about the nature of memory.
Yeah. Yeah, because, I mean, apparently the intern on Tantive 4 did a bumbling job when wiping C-3PO's memory, so, yeah.
No, it's just that it's never, ever perfect.
Oh, well.
You'll live. Somehow, some way,
I'll live.
You'll live.
Yeah. All right. Well, I will live. That should be the title of the episode. It sounds great.
It will not be.
Yep, you'll live. All right. Well, that is going to do it for us today. Next week, we are going to be talking about Bloodlines with Paul Lindbergh and possibly with your friend John. So we'll see. Not exactly sure what we're going to do on there, but we will be talking about Bloodlines one way or another.
Bloodline, it's singular.
Bloodline? Oh, it's just Bloodline? Oh, okay. We will be talking about Bloodline.
Just one Bloodline.
Also, let's see. Is there a comic next week?
I'll have to check again to be sure, but I don't think there is. I think it's no comic. Yeah.
All right. Well, we will go in depth on Bloodlines then, because I've still not read it. I haven't got it in the mail yet. I don't know. It's been like however long. I pre-ordered it from Amazon, or no, I didn't.
This is what you get for living in Eugene, Oregon.
Well, I don't even live in Eugene. I live an hour away from Eugene in the mountains. So yeah, that's what you get.
So that's even worse.
That's what you get for living here.
You had this coming, damn it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, if you want to send us an email, you can always do that at fasterandmoreintense@gmail.com. You can check us out on Facebook at Facebook/fasterandmoreintense. We are on Twitter at FMI Podcasting. We are on YouTube at Faster and More Intense Podcasting, and on iTunes at, you guessed it, Faster and More Intense Podcasting. Star Wars is the exclusive trademark of Lucasfilm Limited. All Star Wars names and sounds are the exclusive copyright of Lucasfilm or parent company. All content generated on this site is the exclusive intellectual property of Faster and More Intense.